The suitcase was still in my hand when I understood that I was no longer welcome in the house where I grew up. The wrought iron gate that my father had custom made 20 years ago was exactly the same painted glossy black with those rose bushes my mother cared for as if they were real children. The only thing different was me. Or maybe it was them. That night, standing on the sidewalk of Elm Street in Greenwich, Connecticut, with swollen feet after an 18-hour flight from Madrid, I understood that some doors close long before you ring the bell. My name is Rachel. I am 39 years old, and I am the oldest daughter of a family I spent a long time confusing with a home. I have been living in Spain for 12 years, working as a financial engineer for a bank in Madrid. I left at 27 when I realized my salary back in the States always stretched to cover everyone else before it covered me. I also left because I couldn't stand being the daughter they only called when the car broke down, when the cousin's tuition was due, when grandma needed surgery, or when my little sister wanted a Caribbean cruise for her sweet 16. I left because every time I flew back to my parents' house, I felt less like a daughter and more like an ATM branch of the Bank of Rachel. But I came back that night because my mother had called me 3 weeks earlier in tears. She told me her and my father's 40th anniversary party wouldn't be complete without me, that they were getting old, that time spares no one, and please, please, sweetheart, please, Rachel, just come for a few days. And I, who already had $3,000 saved up to go to Lisbon with my partner in September, canceled the trip. I bought a coach ticket that cost me $2,200. I took 4 days of vacation I didn't really have to spare. I told Matthew, my partner, to try and understand. It was my mother. It was 40 years of marriage. How could I not go? Matthew said something that stuck with me. He said, "Rachel, a family that only invites you when it is convenient isn't a family that loves you. It's a family that needs you, and those are two very different things." I laughed. I told him he was exaggerating. I kissed him goodbye and grabbed my suitcase. The flight landed at JFK at 11:30 at night. I took an Uber straight to my parents' house in Greenwich because the party was the next day, and my mother had promised my room was ready with fresh sheets and everything. When I pulled up, the house was lit up like a Christmas tree. People were coming and going, servers in uniform, a catering van unloading trays. I figured they were just getting a head start on the prep. I rang the bell. My father opened the door. He was wearing a navy blue suit I had never seen before, with a crisp white pocket square. He looked me up and down, the suitcase, the travel-exhausted face, the messy airplane hair, and he spoke with that calm, quiet voice he always used when he was scolding you without shouting. "Rachel, honey, there has been a change of plans. We don't have room for you here." I just stood there. I thought I had misheard him. I said, "Dad, it's me, Rachel. I just got in from Madrid." He glanced back inside like he was making sure nobody was listening and pulled the door almost shut, leaving just a crack. He said, "Yes, sweetheart, I know who you are. But your sister Chloe is already here, with her husband and the kids, and your Aunt Lucy came with your cousin. The truth is, the house is full. Your mother thought it would be better if you stayed at a hotel. It's just for a few days." I said, "Dad, what are you talking about? Mom told me my room was ready." He sighed, like I was the one being difficult. He said, "Rachel, you are both adults now. Your mother and I, we are older. This is our anniversary. We want peace. Your sister always gets nervous when you are around. You know how you two are. It is better if you just come straight to the party tomorrow. Have dinner, say hello, and that's it. Check into the Four Seasons. It's 10 minutes away." And then, without giving me a second to answer, my father closed the door. I heard the deadbolt click. I heard the laughter inside. I heard my sister Chloe's voice laughing with someone. That little bell chime laugh my mother always adored. The one my father said I never knew how to imitate. I stood on the porch with my suitcase in my hand, staring at my mother's rose bushes. They were red, but that night, under the yellow glare of the porch light, they looked pitch black. I didn't cry. That is the strangest part of it all. I didn't shed a single tear on my parents' doorstep. I walked back down to the street, ordered another Uber, and told the driver to take me to the Four Seasons. On the way as we drove down Putnam Avenue, I caught my reflection in the car window. I looked old. I looked tired. I looked like a woman who had just crossed an ocean, only to have her own father tell her she was taking up too much space. I got to the hotel and paid for a room that cost $400 a night. I collapsed on the bed without even taking my shoes off. And only then, when the door was locked and nobody could see me, did I cry. But I didn't cry because of the rejection. I cried because deep down, a part of me already knew. A part of me had always known. The next morning, I woke up to a text from my mother. It read, "Honey, I know your father was harsh last night, but try to understand. He's stressed. The party is at 7 at the Oakwood Country Club. Please come. Please wear something nice. Don't embarrass me in front of your aunts. Love, Mom." Not an apology, not an explanation, just an order disguised as a request. This is where I need to pause and tell you something that might help you understand why I went to that party and why I shouldn't have. Although looking back, if I hadn't gone, I never would have discovered what I did. I am the oldest daughter. My sister Chloe is 8 years younger than me. For as long as I can remember, my family operated in two distinct categories. There was Chloe, the golden child, the one who went to private schools, the one who got a car at 18, the one who married a businessman's son and got a $150,000 wedding paid for by my parents. And then there was me, the one who got a scholarship to a state school, the one who worked from the time she was 19, the one who paid half the household bills when she lived with them, the one who sent money from Madrid every single month to help cover my father's medical expenses, the one who for 12 years never failed to deliver, even though she never once got a thank you, and yet I still went. I put on a black dress I had bought in Madrid specifically for this party. I got my hair done at the hotel spa. I took a cab to the country club, paid the fare, and walked toward the entrance with that stupid, stubborn hope that only belongs to daughters who haven't fully accepted who their parents really are. The club was decorated with white lights draped through the trees. A string quartet was playing classical music. The tables had gold linens and orchid centerpieces. My financial brain never really shuts off, and I calculated without even trying that this party had cost at least $80,000, maybe more. I walked in. My mother spotted me from across the room. She came running over, hugging me, like nothing had happened the night before. She said, "Honey, you look so beautiful. Come on, come say hi to your aunt." She dragged me across the ballroom without letting me get a word in. She introduced me to cousins I barely recognized. She made me smile for photos. She handed me a glass of wine I didn't ask for. My father greeted me with a kiss on the forehead, as if last night had been entirely erased from history. My sister Chloe hugged me and said, "Oh, sis, I'm so glad you made it." Her husband Jason didn't even look at me. I sat at my assigned table, which was pushed all the way to the back, right next to a deaf great-aunt and a second cousin I hadn't seen since I was 15. During dinner, my father gave a speech. He talked about 40 years of love, of sacrifice, of family. He mentioned Chloe 3 times. He mentioned his grandkids, Chloe's children, 4 times. He didn't mention me once. It was as if I wasn't even there. Like the chair I was sitting in was empty. And still I clapped. Still I raised my glass. Still I smiled when my mother leaned in to take a selfie with me and whispered in my ear, "Thanks for coming, sweetheart. You don't know how much this means." I left the party before dessert. I told my mother the jet lag was catching up with me. She didn't even try to convince me to stay. She gave me a peck on the cheek and hurried back to the dance floor where my father was waiting. That night at the hotel, I texted Matthew. I said, "You were right." He replied with 3 words, "Come on home." But I didn't go home. I changed my flight to 3 days later. I wanted to say goodbye to my mother as a daughter, not as a chore. I wanted to give myself one last chance to understand or to forgive. Even I didn't really know what I was looking for. 3 days after the party, my phone rang at 6:30 in the morning. I was still in the hotel, my suitcase already packed, because my flight was leaving that afternoon. It was my mother. I thought she was calling to say goodbye. I thought she was going to invite me to breakfast, that she was finally going to say the things she hadn't dared to say in 40 years. I answered. Her voice sounded rushed, the way it does when there's a problem that needs fixing right now. She said, "Honey, I need you to go to the bank before you head to the airport. There's a little issue we need to sort out." I asked her, "What issue?" And listen closely here, because this is the exact moment my life split right down the middle. My mother spoke with a calmness that made the hairs on my arms stand up. "It's a bill from the party. The venue, the catering, the musicians. We were short on the final payment. It's $40,000. The account is in your name, honey. We just need you to swing by, sign the final promissory note, and set up the payment plan before you leave." I sat there in dead silence. I waited for her to laugh. I waited for her to say it was a joke that my father was listening on speakerphone and they were both cracking up. I said, "Mom, what are you talking about? I didn't sign anything. I didn't hire anyone. I wasn't even in the country when you planned this party. I got here the night before." My mother sighed, playing the victim again. She said, "Honey, please don't make a scene. Your father and I are old. They wouldn't give us a loan because your dad's retired and I've never had credit. You're the only one in the family with a perfect credit score, earning euros. It was just the easiest way." Chloe and Jason are swamped with the mortgage on their new house. They couldn't do it. You weren't even going to notice. We were going to pay you back a little at a time. And then I laughed. I laughed for the first time in 3 days. I laughed a hollow, ugly laugh, a laugh that sounded a lot more like sobbing than joy. I said, "Mom, run that by me again. Are you telling me you took out a loan in my name without telling me?" She hesitated. She said, "Honey, it's not exactly like that. Your dad has a power of attorney from you from years ago. Remember? When you moved to Madrid, you signed a POA so he could manage your old American accounts while you were away. Well, he took that to the bank and signed for you. It's totally legal, honey. It's standard procedure." I remembered. I remembered with the sickening clarity. Before I moved to Madrid 12 years ago, my father had me sign a limited power of attorney for emergencies, just so he could close my old checking account if I couldn't do it from overseas. I trusted him. He was my dad. I signed it. I was 27, and I still believed that family was something sacred. I told my mother, "Mom, that POA was for emergencies. It wasn't a blank check to mortgage my name." She got angry. She raised her voice and said, "Rachel, do not speak to me like that. After everything your father and I have done for you, you're going to complain about one bill? It's our 40th anniversary, sweetheart. It's a once-in-a-lifetime event. You'll pay it off in installments. It's not a big deal. Your sister is going to chip in too." I asked her how much Chloe was chipping in. There was a long silence. Finally, my mother said, Chloe can't right now, but down the road. And right there in that silence, I understood everything. I understood that this wasn't just about one bill. I understood that this had been happening for years. That this power of attorney had probably been used before. That the panicked phone calls for money, the medical emergencies, the little loans, all of that was just a smokescreen. This was the real operation. I was the invisible guarantor for a family living way beyond its means. I told my mother I would go to the bank. I told her not to worry. I hung up. And then I did something that might surprise you. I didn't call my father. I didn't call my sister. I called Matthew in Madrid. I told him everything, my voice shaking, but I didn't shed a tear. Matthew said, "Rachel, listen to me very carefully. Do not sign anything. Do not go to the bank they told you to go to. Before you do anything else, call a lawyer, right now. I know a sharp guy in Chicago. My cousin Andrew worked a case with him. I'm sending you his number." 20 minutes later, I was on the phone with Mr. Hayes, a lawyer who specialized in banking law and fraud. I explained the situation. He asked me 3 questions. First, do you have a copy of the original power of attorney? I said yes, in my cloud files. Second, which bank holds this party debt? I told him what my mother had said. First National, downtown branch. Third, can you go to the bank today, alone, without telling anyone in your family? I said yes. Mr. Hayes gave me precise instructions. He told me to demand a certified copy of every single document signed in my name over the last 5 years. He told me to ask for a detailed statement of accounts, to absolutely not sign anything new. And if they pressured me to say I needed to review it with my financial advisor before proceeding, I canceled my flight. I paid for another night at the hotel, called my boss in Madrid, and begged for 2 more days. By 10 in the morning, I was sitting across from the bank manager, wearing the face of a financial engineer, not an obedient daughter. What I found in that office changed everything. There wasn't just one account in my name, there were 3. The first was the anniversary party for $40,000, signed 3 weeks ago, using the power of attorney. Up to that point, my mother hadn't completely lied. The second was a personal loan for $25,000, signed 4 months ago, supposedly for medical expenses. I hadn't been informed of any medical expenses. I asked where that money went. The manager showed me the wire transfer. It went straight into my sister Chloe's account, labeled as a family loan. The third one knocked the wind completely out of my lungs. It was a home equity line of credit for $300,000, opened 8 months ago using my condo in downtown Chicago as collateral. Yes, my condo. The one I bought with my own salary, paying the down payment with my own savings. The one my parents never contributed a dime toward, but happily stayed in whenever they visited the city. The one in my name, which was now mortgaged to the hilt. I asked the manager what that money was used for. She looked at her screen and said, "Ms. Rachel, according to our records, those funds were used to consolidate prior debts and to invest in a business registered to Jason Miller, my sister's husband." I stared at the paperwork scattered across the desk. I felt something strange. It wasn't rage. It wasn't sadness. It felt like someone was finally telling me the truth after 40 years. Like a blindfold had been ripped off and I could finally see with both eyes. I asked the manager for certified copies of absolutely everything. I demanded the security footage from the days those documents were signed. I told her I had reasonable suspicion that a power of attorney had been severely misused. The manager, a woman in her 50s with kind eyes, looked at me and lowered her voice. "Ma'am, if you plan to press charges, I suggest you bring a lawyer. We've seen this before. More times than you'd think." That phrase haunted me the rest of the day. More times than you'd think. That afternoon, Mr. Hayes reviewed all the documents. He confirmed what I already knew. The power of attorney I signed 12 years ago was strictly limited. It clearly stated it only applied to minor banking operations and closing existing accounts. It absolutely did not authorize opening lines of credit, mortgages, or personal loans. What my father had done, in strict legal terms, was a felony. Document forgery, wire fraud, misuse of power of attorney, and, depending on the judge, breach of fiduciary duty as an aggravating factor. Mr. Hayes looked at me and said, "Rachel, you have two roads here. The first is the legal road. We file a police report, we claw back the money, and we likely put your father in very serious trouble. Your sister and her husband could also face charges for unjust enrichment. The second road is negotiation. You call them, demand repayment, reach a settlement, and forgive them. What do you want to do?" I asked for 24 hours to decide. I didn't sleep that night. I paced the hotel room until 4 in the morning. I thought about my mother, about her rose bushes, about her tearful phone calls begging me to come. I thought about my father, about his toast at the party where he didn't mention my name once. I thought about Chloe, about her little bell chime laugh and the 5 years she spent borrowing money from me she never paid back. I thought about Jason, my brother-in-law, who knew exactly where that seed money came from and kept his mouth shut. And I thought about me, about the 27-year-old Rachel who signed a piece of paper without reading the fine print because she trusted them. About the 33-year-old Rachel who wired money from Madrid every month. About the Rachel standing here now in a $400 a night hotel room, carrying nearly $400,000 in debt she never asked for. I made a decision. It wasn't easy, but it was mine. The next morning, I called my mother. I told her, "Mom, I'm coming to the house tonight at 6. Tell everyone to be there. Dad, Chloe, Jason. It's important. I have something I need to discuss with the whole family." My mother was thrilled. She thought I was going to cave. She thought I was coming to sign the papers. She said, "Oh, honey, that's wonderful. Let's just put this all behind us. I'm making a pot roast. Remember how much you loved it?" I said, "Don't cook for me, Mom. I'm not coming to eat." At 6 o'clock on the dot, I pulled up to my parents' house. This time, I didn't ring the bell. The door was unlocked. Chloe was already there with Jason. My father was sitting in his usual armchair, reading the Wall Street Journal like it was just a lazy Sunday afternoon. My mother was fluttering around with a tray of cookies nobody asked for. Right behind me walked Mr. Hayes. My mother saw him and stopped dead in her tracks, the tray hovering in her hands. My father lowered his newspaper. I walked to the center of the living room and sat down. I pulled a thick manila folder out of my bag, crammed with paperwork. I dropped it dead center on the coffee table. My father said, "Rachel, who is this gentleman?" I looked at him. "This is my lawyer, Dad. And inside this folder is every single thing you've done in my name over the last few years. Everything. The forged signatures, the loans you opened using a voided power of attorney, the mortgage you slapped on my condo without telling me. It's all here." The silence in that living room was the loudest thing I've ever heard in my life. Louder than any scream. My sister Chloe started to cry. That bell chime laugh my mother adored dissolved into a messy sob. She said, "Rachel, sis, it's not what it looks like. We were in a really tough spot. Jason lost his business and I cut her off. I said, Chloe, do not call me sis. Sisters don't do this to sisters. Jason, my brother-in-law, opened his mouth to speak. My father silenced him with a raised hand. My father finally looked me in the eye. With that same calm, measured voice, he said, Rachel, there was no need to bring a lawyer into this. We resolve things as a family. I stared right back. Dad, this stopped being a family matter the day you forged my signature. It's a legal matter now. My mother collapsed onto the sofa. She started wailing, repeating over and over that it was just a mistake, that they were going to fix it, that it wasn't that big of a deal. She asked why I had to be so ruthless after everything they had done for me, and then for the first time in my entire life, I talked back to my mother. Slow, without shouting, without crying. I said, Mom, what have you done for me? Name one single thing you've done for me in the last 20 years that I didn't pay for directly or indirectly. Just one. She didn't answer. Mr. Hayes took the floor. He explained with cold, professional detachment exactly what was going to happen. First, the police report had already been filed that morning with the district attorney. Second, the debts were going to be legally transferred to the true beneficiary, meaning my father, through a forced debt acknowledgement process. Third, the lien on my condo would be immediately dissolved because the signature was demonstrably forged, and we already had a handwriting expert on retainer. Fourth, depending on what the DA decided, there could be criminal charges against my father for document forgery, and against my sister and her husband for unjust enrichment regarding the wired funds. My father went completely pale. For the first time in 39 years, I saw genuine fear in his eyes. But I wasn't finished. I pulled a second sheet of paper from my bag. It was a letter. I handed it to my mother. I said, "This is a no-contact order. My lawyer will explain the details. But starting today, I don't want you to call me. I don't want you to text me. I don't want to hear from you except through my legal representation. If you need to communicate about the legal proceedings, you do it through Mr. Hayes." My sister Chloe, her face swollen from crying, choked out, "Rachel, what about the kids? What about your nieces and nephews? What are we supposed to tell them?" I looked at her. "Chloe, those kids have a mother and a father. That's their family. I never really was I? Whenever I tried to see them for their birthdays, you told me you guys were too busy. Whenever I shipped them presents from Madrid, they never even said thank you. They'll be fine without me, and I'll be fine without you." My father, in one last desperate attempt, said, "Rachel, you are my daughter. Blood is blood." I gave him the answer I'd been holding back for decades. I said, "Dad, blood is nothing. Blood is just a liquid that pumps through your veins. What binds a family together is respect, honesty, and care. And the three of you didn't give me a single one of those things. You used me. And when someone uses you for 40 years, that's not family. That's just a prolonged abuse." I stood up. I grabbed my folder. I walked toward the front door. My mother screamed after me, completely hysterical now. "Rachel, you're going to regret this! We are your parents!" I stopped with my hand on the doorknob. I turned back one last time. "Mom, I've been regretting things for 39 years. Today is the first day I'm going to live without regret." I walked out of the house. I walked through the yard, past the rose bushes, and reached the wrought iron gate. Mr. Hayes was waiting in his car. I got in. I didn't look back at the house. I flew back to Madrid on a red-eye that night. When I landed, Matthew was waiting for me at arrivals, holding a ridiculous cardboard sign that read, "Welcome to your real home." I hugged him. I cried the way I'd been wanting to cry for years, not out of sadness, out of pure relief. The legal process dragged on for 14 months. My father was found guilty of document forgery and misuse of a power of attorney. He was given a suspended sentence because it was his first offense and because of his age. But he now has a criminal record. My sister and brother-in-law were forced to return the $25,000 transferred to their account, plus interest. The mortgage on my condo was voided. The 3 fraudulent accounts were legally transferred to my father's name, and he had to sell off a piece of family property to liquidate them. During those 14 months, my mother called me 73 times. I counted every single one. I never answered. My sister wrote me letters. I threw them in the trash unopened. My father never reached out. It was the most honest thing he's ever done in his life. 8 months after the trial wrapped up, I got a call from an unknown number. It was Aunt Lucy, my dad's sister. She told me my mother had suffered a heart attack. She was in the hospital, and she begged me to come see her. I thought about it that night. I talked it over with Matthew. I talked it over with myself. The next morning, I called Aunt Lucy back. I said, "Aunt Lucy, I'm deeply sorry about what's happening. I'll send a floral arrangement to the hospital. I send her all my love." "But I'm not coming." My aunt gasped. "How can you be so cold? She's your mother." I said, "Aunt Lucy, my mother spent 40 years choosing how to treat me. I don't owe anything to that choice. If, God willing, she recovers, that's wonderful. If she doesn't, she'll be at peace. I am not responsible for her heart, not the literal one, and not the figurative one." My mother recovered. I heard it through my aunt, who remains the only person from that bloodline I still occasionally exchange words with. My mother never called me again. It's been 2 years since that afternoon in my parents' living room. I'm 41 now. I still live in Madrid. Matthew and I got married 6 months ago in a tiny ceremony with 12 people. Not a single member of my family was there, and it was the happiest day of my life. We bought a small house out in the suburbs. We got a dog. I'm expecting a baby. It's a girl. We're going to name her Olivia. Sometimes late at night, I think about my mother. I think about her rose bushes. I wonder if she still waters them. I wonder if she ever truly felt sorry. I wonder if she ever actually understood what happened. But it doesn't hurt anymore. That's the most important part. It just doesn't hurt. I learned that family love is not unconditional. I learned that blood doesn't obligate you to be a martyr. I learned that saying no to someone who hurts you doesn't make you a bad daughter. It makes you a human being. I learned that setting boundaries is the most profound act of self-love a person can commit. And I learned something else. Something that took me 39 years to figure out. I learned that a family that only calls you when they need you isn't a family. It's an invoice in disguise, and you have every right in the world to refuse to pay a bill you never agreed to. If you're listening to this and you see a reflection of your own story in mine, I just want to tell you one thing. You are not alone. You are not crazy. You are not a bad person for wanting to walk away. You deserve a family that loves you for who you are, not for what you can provide. And if the family you were born into can't give you that, it is perfectly fine to build a new one, with your partner, with your friends, with the people you choose. I did. And today, as my little girl Olivia grows inside me, I promise her that she will never know what it feels like to be used by the people who are supposed to love her. I promise her that my house will be a place where the truth is spoken. I promise her that she will grow up knowing her worth isn't measured in dollars. That was my story. That anniversary bill my parents put in my name was the greatest thing that ever happened to me, because it forced me to open my eyes. It made me realize that the door they slammed in my face that night, that wrought iron gate in Greenwich, was a door that had been begging me not to enter for years. Today I'm grateful for it. I truly am. Because sometimes life slams a door in your face just to push you toward the only one that actually matters: the door to your own peace. Closing a door in time is an act of self-reliance. When someone repeatedly hurts you, walking away doesn't make you the villain. It just hands you back the peace you deserve. True family is built on respect, honesty, and care, not just blood. Today, you have the power to surround yourself with people who value you for you, not for what you give them. Your peace is worth far more than keeping up appearances. A kind note for you. This story was created and imagined by artificial intelligence with the purpose of entertaining you while leaving a positive lesson to brighten your day.